All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me this evening, singer-songwriter out of Nashville, Tennessee, Lyssa Coulter. What's going on?
Not much. How are you? Thank you
Um,
for having me.
yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for doing this.
Anytime, anytime. This will be fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, talk to me about how you got your start in the music industry. I know the scene is crazy right now over there, huh?
Yeah, it's insane, especially since like COVID has lifted. There's a lot of like back and forth, a lot of people leaving, a lot of people coming. Especially, now obviously we've gotten into the new college school year, but whenever we're in Nashville and Belmont and Vandy start back up, it always gets crazy around here. But I got my start back in 2016 or 17 as a
Hmm.
full-time musician. I had been singing like as a hobby since I was little. Like my dad will tell stories about how I would sing to the musical Annie in the back of the car, like the soundtrack, the Disney version, of course. I'm a huge Disney girl.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, I could go on about Disney forever,
Well, we
literally
can we
forever.
can talk about that at the end of the podcast if you want.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into it. But in 2016, I moved from Medway, Massachusetts to Westboro, Massachusetts, and I was introduced to a vocal coach who I had just literally Googled like coaches in Westboro because I had one back when I was in Medway and I just needed to find a new one. And the one that I landed on actually did vocal coaching, but also did like very beginner steps of artist development. So how to book yourself a show, how to make an income in the industry, like just very basic steps to be able to get in the industry and give yourself a start. And this is something that I had like dreamed about since I can't even tell you like how old, like since I could remember. And I
A
didn't know how I
while.
was gonna do it.
A
Yeah,
while.
it's been a while. Right, right. And I once I found out that it was like something that I could get my hands on and like something that I could do
Hmm.
and work towards, that was the end. Like college wasn't an option anymore. No other career path was an option. It was just music. Like that was it. So I just jumped into it. My first few performances were at like a few open mics in Faneuil Hall out in Boston, which is like a super historic area, which is
Hmm.
like really cool to have the opportunity to perform there. And then I had some artists in the New England music scene who I'd reached out to really help bring me up and teach me how to write and show me the way. And then, a short year and a half to 2 years later, I decided to make the move to Nashville.
Yeah, before we get to the Nashville part, that intrigues me. I don't think I've ever talked about open mics on the podcast. So talk to me about how that works. You just call somebody up and say, "Hey, do you have any room available for such and such?"
Yeah, so my vocal coach actually like set them up. So what she would do was she'd actually book like a whole like hour or 2 hour time slot during the open mic with like the people that ran it, I guess.
Okay, so
And we would
she
literally
ran
be
the show.
singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And she literally, we would be singing to karaoke tracks most of us, which is so funny because, like, when you think of an open mic, you think of like acoustic guitars or pianos,
Right.
like you think,
Right.
but half of us like didn't know like that whole thing. Like we really were like super green and all that. So we kind of had to start from scratch. I was literally singing to karaoke tracks in a little cafe in Worcester,
That's
Massachusetts.
awesome. That's awesome. All right, so talk to me about the move to Nashville. What was that like? Crazy, huh?
Yeah, so it was pretty insane. So my friend Paige Davis, who is originally from Massachusetts and just moved down here a few months ago, she had come to me originally and was like, "Hey, I think I might want to go to Belmont for college. Like, would you want to move to Nashville and be my roommate?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I don't plan to go to school, but we can definitely like, split an apartment together. That's totally cool." And she decided to go to UMass Amherst instead and study something beyond music. She's super, super smart. Um,
Hmm.
but then I was kind of just like, well, I'm not gonna not go just because like the person who I was supposed to room with, like, what isn't gonna go? Like, like
Yeah,
why would
yeah.
I just not go anymore when this is my dream? And I ended up just going. And it's kind of funny because she actually ended up staying with me my first week in Nashville, just like for a little like girls trip. Like she ended up coming down. But I ended up moving down and it was hard. It was learning to it's not like college where like you're stuck in a classroom with people and you can make friends. Like you have to go out and
Hmm.
make your own friends and meet people at bars, and you have to learn how the town works. You have to learn how the industry within the town works and how things stack up and all of that. So it was very intimidating. Lots of homesickness for the first year, especially the first year. And
Yeah, I
even now,
bet.
like even now I'm only 4 years in, and like I feel like I'm just getting the grasp of things, like
Yeah.
just within the past like year or so.
Yeah, that I bet, man. That's gotta be crazy. I don't know anything about that, but it's just gotta be over. But it's gotta be cool too, because especially starting out. Like, I hate to sound cliche, but like you got the world in front of you. There's nothing really holding you back. So it's gotta be kind of cool at the same time.
Right. It is really, really cool. And it's interesting when you break away from your parents and you have to learn your own ways and your
Yeah.
own
Well, it's
truths
been a while
and
for
your
me, but I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
it's
that too.
super right, right.
So, See Me Now. That was a year ago, right? So talk to me about that
It
song.
was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? Okay, so what
This
talk to me about that song. How'd that come about?
actually it might have been a year ago. I'm so bad with time.
I don't know, I
But
looked real quick. It was like a Google search. I s But
yeah,
yeah,
right.
anyways, go ahead and talk about how that song started.
Yeah, so I had hit up one of my friends and I was like, "Listen, I'm not vibing with this dude that I have a situationship with, like,
Mhm.
very, like, he was had a girlfriend, didn't have a girlfriend, had a girlfriend, didn't have a girlfriend, and, like, turns out throughout the whole entire, like, time that we were talking, he had a girlfriend."
Oh, man, sorry to
And,
hear that.
I was friends with this I mean, it happens. It happens. It's one of those things where you have to like, and this is where the song comes from. You just got to push through it and like be the badass you are and like really just move through that shit. And excuse my language.
No,
I
no,
have
there's no parameters here.
trucker mouth right here.
No, there's no
Um,
parameters. Have at it.
okay, okay. But his brother, I was really good friends with, so I went to his brother and one of my good friends, Darian Lee. So it was Darian and Nick Powlilly who's on the track, and was like, "Listen, you know how your brother is. I know how your brother is. I have this other great writer. Like, can we just like write a song?" And it was funny because Nick was going through a very similar experience with a girl that he was like seeing at the time. So we both kind of like came together with Darren and wrote See Me Now. And started kind of going in a rock direction. And it was kind of foreshadowing something that I didn't know. I didn't know
Yeah.
that I was going to go full force into rock. And that's where I ended up. But it's probably like one of my favorite power songs that I do during my shows.
Yeah, look, it's got like 16,000 views. And it must have
Yeah.
been something good about it. So yeah, because I saw the video, or yeah, I saw the video and I picked up a line. Do you mind if I got a question about a line in there?
Yeah.
All right. You said, let's see. Let's see if I can read my own handwriting. I wish I could see your face, and it says, "Don't pick when you don't pick up this time." Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Is that like that's crazy. I wouldn't even think about saying something like that. I've been through that
Yeah.
though, where it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're getting through it, and like the person expects you to always be there, and then you're just like, "Nah, not this time." I get that. I felt that.
Right. Right, and that, like, that one day that you don't pick up, you know that person's like, "What? Like, what is
Yeah,
happening?
exactly,
Why aren't they
exactly.
attending to me?"
Like they thought you had him under your thumb, and not the case anymore.
Right, right. It was definitely just, like, a taking back my power song. I think when you're in, like, a toxic situation like that, you always have, I feel like there are always these portions or chapters of your life where you have to take your own power back from that toxic situation, and that, like, that era, I guess, that was taking my power back, you know?
Yeah. So Chaos, it just came out, right? A couple months ago?
Couple months ago, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, I like that cover, by the way. I posted it on Instagram to promote this interview. Pretty badass cover.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk about that. Like,
Thank
h-
you.
how did you like who had that concept of the card and the
So
zoom out and all that?
I had the yeah, yeah, I had the concept of the card. I was like, let's do something tarot. Like, what's a tarot card? Like, I love spiritual things. I'm not good at like tarot readings. Like, I'm still learning about them. I have my own deck and like but I love learning about like spiritual things and energy and everything that goes around along in that realm. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's kind of incorporate like that part of my life into it. It'd be kind of cool. So the Tower card, in some cases represents chaos. And I was like, let's
Mm-hmm.
use the tarot card, the Tower tarot card.
Yeah.
And we ended up like having to figure out ways to like burn it. I ended up like researching
Really?
online, like, is it bad luck to burn cards, like to burn the tarot cards, like what?
That's
And
awesome.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like this whole thing.
Yeah, because I saw
And
the
we
blue flame
eventually,
over the car. That's pretty awesome.
right, and that was real fire. Like we didn't edit that in. We had to like shake it out really quickly. We had to do
That's
it a few
awesome.
times. The burnt edge. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But then my photographer Justin, he goes by Squeaks on tour. We call him Squeaks,
Yeah, sure.
and he has a garage in his backyard, from the house that he that they rent out, and it was like the perfect setting for this shoot. And he was like, I'll just stick some red and blue lights in there and it'll look sick. And
Hmm.
it looked pretty cool to me, so I was all here for it.
Yeah, so to the song itself, you start off with saying like I say shit I don't mean. I say shit I don't mean all the time. But
Right.
is that basically what it was? Was just like I say shit I don't mean and like take it or leave it type deal?
It's like kind of like a continued line. So like the first two lines are like, I say shit I don't mean when I'm mid confrontation. So like the concept of like we don't say things that we mean when we're angry at someone, or like we
Oh,
sometimes say things that we don't, we haven't thought through when we're in the heat of the moment.
like you're not thinking and you know. Um how long did the song take the concept like from start to finish?
It took us two writes. And I believe that was in January, maybe. I think it was January. And then I got in the studio right away and I was like, I'm recording this. I knew this was like the first single I wanted to record to come back with, because I needed something after a year or two. And I was like, I need
Oh, you
new
took a
music.
break?
Not like an official break, but I didn't put out music for like a while, like for like a year, which is like a while.
I mean,
Um,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
with the amount that artists are putting out music today, it's like
yeah.
every 6 weeks
Pandemic
artists are
and
putting.
yeah, I get that. I get that.
Right. But like after considering it all, it was a while. And
Mm,
so I was like, okay, like how am I going to relaunch myself? What do I want to do? And it was a lot of like, okay, like you grew up on early 2000s rock and that's what you love. Like Linkin Park and Creed and Goo
mm.
Goo Dolls, Matchbox
I know
20,
all about
Nickelback,
that.
all.
I know all
Right.
about that.
And I was like, okay, like that's where home is for me, like in my heart with music. So like why don't you just dig into that? Like dig into what you know. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll make kind of a little bit of a switch over. We'll combine the two genres or whatever the case may be. And I worked for that on like I worked on that, I mean, for the last half of last year, but then like through the 3 months of preparing the song and getting in the studio, it was this big like rebirth, I guess, is what I guess I can call it. Rebrand, rebirth,
Yeah,
what I'm presenting
something like
to
that.
my audience. Right.
Yeah. Um, why country to begin with? Is it just because Nashville makes sense, or let's go back a little bit? Why country?
Yeah. So I think I chose country. So rewind a lot. My like K through 12th grade years, like I feel like those are a whole different life for me. Like I feel like that never happened. It's a part of my life that I'm so disconnected and far from, because there was just like unfortunately so much trauma in that time. It's just so disconnected from my now life. But when I was in middle school and high school, country music was big where I was from. Like it was crazy. Like we lived in this little tiny town in Massachusetts that had like cows and horses and farms and like everything. Like we got out our
Mm,
first grocery store in that town when I was like 10. Like it was crazy. It was a really small town.
yeah.
And so when I like went in with that vocal coach, country music just seemed the most relatable. I had tried so many different things. I had tried like Colby Calais, like more like indie like that. I had tried like a little Taylor Swift something, which I love Taylor Swift. I'm wearing her jacket now, but
You are
I
a
love Taylor Swift.
you are a
I
Swiftie.
am.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a huge Swiftie. Yes. Um, but
First Swiftie
country.
I've ever interviewed.
Oh my gosh,
First,
I'm a huge Swiftie.
yeah,
I
I've
am
interviewed a
huge
lot of
Swiftie.
people, and you're the first Swiftie. I've had people say they, she's all right, and I've had people. I guess that's a whole
No,
different.
Die Hard.
That's a whole different podcast, though. The country Taylor
It
Swift thing.
is. It
Anyway,
is. It
sorry.
is.
Continue. Go ahead.
No, it's fine, but that's, like, exactly, like, that's what I was going for a little while, and so, like, country was just, like, accessible, and it was there, and also, like, in the rock scene, you can't get into clubs as easily to play them, like, they're more ticketed events. When you play country music, you can just go into any bar that's not ticketed. There's no expectation of you to bring a crowd. It's
Mhm.
really easy to dip into. Um, the ladder is definitely still hard to climb, but
Mm.
between the two, it's a lot easier personally for me to get into country. And I also related to the music, like the storytelling was like huge for me, which is something that is really important even as I'm writing rock music. Like storytelling is still super, super important to me. And that's something that I love about country music. It was just like the relatable part. So that's what I stuck with for the longest time because it was so familiar. It was something that I knew, it was something I understood.
Yeah.
But as I grew, like I'm 25 now, so around
Hmm.
like 23, 24, I started like understanding like, oh, I miss the nostalgic feels of jamming out to Lincoln Park with my dad in the car, like when I was, 11 or 12, like I miss that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I really found myself drawn to over the
I
past
have
few
a couple of
years.
Taylor Swift questions. Were you a
Okay.
fan of Taylor Swift before she went pop? Like, do you
I saw
remember?
Fearless. I saw Fearless.
Yeah. Okay. So you know the real
That was
Tay.
album. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. I saw Fearless when I was like really little and I had this pink or purple streak of something in my hair and like the most embarrassing, my hair was all frizzy because it was summer and I didn't understand how to dress myself. Quite embarrassing. But yeah, no, I'm an OG. I kind of disconnected when she went over to pop.
Yeah.
Because I was going through my own stuff and like for me change was so uncomfortable. So I was like, I'm gonna put that away for a second. But I eventually came back around to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that song. We are never, ever, 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 ever getting back together. I was like, how many times are you gonna say ever? That was funny. Um, what are some other artists?
I think a big one for me right now is like especially in the songwriting aspect, like Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen, both of them. Hardy is huge for me right now, especially going into that rock stuff. Like Hardy's really big for me right now. I love listening to Hardy. Um, Trying to think some on the female side, I love me some Miranda Lambert just because she has that drive to her songs. She really
Hmm.
like, especially her early stuff, she puts some really heavy
I get
drive
that a
into
lot
it.
from people. Miranda Lambert. That's a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah, it's truly just the drive in her songs that are just so kick ass. I
Mm.
do like Casey Musgrave's songwriting a lot. Like Rainbow is one of my all-time favorite songs, so I really love that song. I really like what Megan Maroney's doing right now. Like she's
Hmm.
new and upcoming, which is really cool. Priscilla Block is, I mean, another one who's just doing great things right now. But I think I really truly pull from a lot of different artists and I listen and I find what I like and I don't like and I combine what I like and don't like and create me, you
Hmm.
know?
What's the hardest part about doing all this?
Um I think the hardest part is like keeping the fans engaged, like showing them that I actually give a shit and like really want them to connect
Yeah.
and like trying to create that community. I like love this so much. That and also like right now I'm playing downtown like 5 to 6 days a week and
Downtown
when
Nashville,
you're
right? Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
when you play downtown, it's not like on the road because like just to have a very real moment here, I like to keep it real as much as I can. When you're
Hey,
down on Broad
platform's yours. That's.
it's important. It's important. So, but whenever you're down on Broadway, these people, these tourists can go see as many acts as they want. Like you're just another one that they can just go and see. But when you're on the road, like you're expected to make those people's nights because you're probably the only band in town that night. So playing 5 to 6 days a week downtown has just been like sucking energy from me like crazy, simply
Mhm.
because a lot of these people like I don't want to say they take it for granted, but it's not as exciting as if a band were to come to your hometown and there to like hang out with you and spend time with you and all of that. It's like a lot different of a vibe. So it's just very energetically tiring, and with the full
Mm-hmm.
band shows physically tiring. So keeping up with that while like juggling the business, and like I said, just like really creating the fan base and getting people to like just come together over your music. Like I have so many fans in individual places. I'll have like two from here, two from there, five from there, 50 from there, like,
Really?
just in a lot of places, but like getting them to come together in one community and like bond over the music, I think is
Yeah.
probably one of the most like biggest challenges I'm having right now.
Yeah, so I had Crystalline Meadow on the podcast about a month ago, and I couldn't believe she actually agreed to be on the show because her schedule, not that, I was surprised because she's awesome, but like as far as the timing, because she was like mid tour. You should go listen to it. She's like literally mid tour. She was like, it was like a
Oh, I
two
know.
o'clock
Her and I
interview, and I was like, what? It was awesome. It was a great, everyone should check it out. It was a good interview. And you're you're doing some local shows like you just said, right? But you're doing some coming up too?
I mean, I play 5 to 6 times a week in town, and then I usually am on the road 2 weekends a month.
Wow.
And I usually have 2 to between 2 to 4 shows on those weekends out of town.
Yeah, okay. So what are the ones, what are some, not saying they're all like, they're only a few are notable. What are some big ones coming up for you?
We're playing Lake of the Ozarks in a few months. I think that's in July. I'm really excited about that. That's a ticketed event, and we're actually headlining the show, so that's really
Nice.
exciting.
That's awesome.
I've never been to Lake of the Ozarks, so I'm very excited about that.
And that is in
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
Um,
That's awesome.
and my good friend Pete Lockwood is one of the founders of the Whiskey Watering Hole concert series, which is what it's a
Mhm.
part of,
Mhm.
which is really cool. And then the other show, which I'm gonna check my thing here,
Well,
it's Nashville and Nisswa, which is in Minnesota, and Stephen Paul, who is from
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. I
Yes.
gotta say it right. Minnesota. That's
Yes,
that's how
yes.
they say it up there.
It is. And Stephen Paul, who's a Minnesota native but lives here in Nashville, he's actually headlining. Basically, it's 4 Nashville artists going up to Minnesota, playing their original music, getting their name out there. And again, Stephen's from that area, so he'll have a really great following there. And it's going to be my debut show there, so it'll be a lot
Yes.
of fun getting introduced to
Don't
Minnesota.
Listen, don't party too hard, okay? But just enough. Just
One
enough.
show
Well,
in
well, I
Massachusetts,
hope
in
it's
Plymouth
in
at
the I hope it's in the summer because weather's
Hey,
gotta
you'd be surprised.
suck majorly.
A lot of the venues there are indoors, so you'd be very surprised. But it'll be at Proof
Mhm.
22 in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I'm very excited for that to go home and share all the new original music and see everyone and hug everyone, and it'll be good to have friends and family there.
Mhm. Awesome. Awesome. You already answered what's the coolest part about all this?
Oh man. Um, there are a lot of cool parts. I think one of the biggest ones though is like the inner child and me being like, yeah, you're cool. Like you're doing
Like
something that's
like
really cool.
yeah, like
Yeah. Like, and I'm not even in an egotistical way, just like what you're doing is really cool and inspiring to others. And like, it's important for myself to
yeah,
recognize that.
I you got one life, so enjoy it while you can, and you don't want to do something you don't like, so you know. And to be honest, you're really talented, so yeah, I'm
Thank
impressed by
you.
what you're
Thank you.
doing.
Yeah.
So we talked about country artists. What about rock music? I mean, I know you mentioned a few, but you got any like ones you're listening to now, like bands, like what's in your playlist?
I'm like listening to like a lot of Nickelback's new stuff. I'm glad that they made their comeback, but I also love like Hailstorm. Like,
Nice, yeah.
yeah.
I
Like,
saw Disturbed. I saw Disturbed live when I was younger. They're my
oh,
favorite.
that's so fun. It's funny. I've never actually seen a rock concert.
Oh, you need
So I
to.
need to. Yeah, I need to. But I also love like a lot of artists, like pop punk artists right now, like Taylor Acorn. She's killing it. She's newer to the scene. Charlotte Sands, who's a little more
Mhm.
She's a little more pop, pop punk, like just some really cool artists coming up right now in the scene. Even like Lauren Weintraub, like she considers herself like country pop, but she's definitely got like a little bit of punk in her, and she's from New England as well. So it's cool seeing people that are, from where I'm from doing some really cool things. So
Yeah.
and then like a lot of Creed, like I love Creed. I love Goo Goo Dolls. They're my number one favorite band. Like
Really?
they
Iris
yeah.
and Name. I
Name
like
and
I like
Slide and like,
I like Name. That's a good song. It gets me
yeah,
it
all
hits
the
me
Eagle
it
Arms.
hits me it hits me right here, Lyssa. That Name
It does
song.
for
Like
me too. I love that's probably one of my
it's
favorite
like,
songs as
oh
well, or like Broadway
man.
favorite.
And then after that I listen to Black Sabbath. I'm just kidding. Um
Right.
no, but pop punk, like most people think Blink 182. Were you big into them?
Yeah, I loved Blink-182 growing up. Linkin Park was big for me.
Newfound
Um,
Glory.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Boys Like Girls, like
The whole
all of
nine.
all
We
of
could
them.
go on and on and on. Some 41.
Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's start naming bands, I mean, Yellow Card.
Right. Right, right.
um I think Yellow Card's underrated. Only One, and like they got a few others. People don't talk about them, and that's a shame. Um
Right.
what's the future for you, like as far as, do you see yourself staying in this genre?
Yeah, I definitely see myself staying in rock, however that looks. Like that might have a little bit of a country flair to it. That might go full rock. At this point, I've kind of stopped putting a genre around it because it's always the industry is ever changing, and me as a human is ever changing. Like I think that it's important that people really start looking at music as just like the sounds and not necessarily the genre, because there's such a tight restriction, especially on country music. People are like, well, Florida Georgia Line isn't country. And it's like, well, who are you to say that? Like, who are you to point that out? Like, is there a book that says what's country and what's not, you know?
Wait, what do they
So
say it is?
they say it's pop.
It's news to me.
Right. So
I
it's like
always
it's one of those things where I don't put a name to the genre anymore, because it's not about the genre. It's about what's coming out of me and like the music and the words and the lyrics and what's behind it, the messages, the stories. It has nothing to do with what genre it is. It's the instruments, it's everything that creates it.
Mhm. You talked about some of the shows coming up. Where can people find you on social media?
At Lyssa Coulter across all platforms, and then lyssacoulter.com. I'm trying to grow my TikTok a little bit, so extra plug for the TikTok. Give me a follow at Lyssa Coulter. Give me some comments, some views. Y'all know the drill.
Yeah. Last question. You got a fun story on the road?
Oh,
Something cool that
um,
happened, or prank, or anything?
I have something cool that happened the other day. It wasn't on the road. It was actually in town I was playing, but I'll tell the story since we went off on the Swifty thing. The other day, so Taylor Swift played Gillette Stadium, which is my home area, this
Mhm.
past weekend. And I saw her at Nissan in Tennessee here in Nashville. And the other day we show up to my gig at Redneck Riviera as we normally do. And Paul Sidoti, who's Taylor Swift's guitarist, was playing bass for one of the bands that was playing. And I was having a little like fangirl moment. For some reason, decided to wear my Taylor Swift gear that night to my show. Like it was
Mhm.
totally like I had no clue he was playing with the band before
That's
us.
crazy.
And yeah. And so my drummer, who was also my boyfriend, was very kind, and went up to him and asked if he could play a song with us. And I think I'm just still starstruck from the other night because he
Wow.
played Love Story with us, and it was the highlight of my week.
Nice, nice. Um, you have to be what's the like how do you keep the drive to do it? It's got to be kind of, draining or do you always have like is something that motivates you, or is it just, kind of the will to carry on, I guess?
It's the dream, like selling out stadiums. That's what motivates me.
Yeah. Is that the ultimate goal, is to be a headliner everywhere,
Yeah,
tour the
I
country, the
I
whole
want
nine?
to. I want to tour the world. I want to be at stadiums. Like, I want to be right under where Taylor Swift is. I don't want to hit that level because that seems like a little too much for me. But I want to sell it like 1 or 2 nights. She does like 2 or
She
3
like
nights. I want to sell it like 1 or 2 nights.
I have no idea how she's doing it. She's like killing herself. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah,
Crazy.
it's gotta be surreal too. I wonder if she's sober, like as far as no caffeine, no nothing. She's gotta be take something to keep the drive, like you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Not fall asleep
Who
mid.
knows?
I don't know. I don't know. All right,
Crazy.
Lyssa, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. Take care, okay?
You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.